He walked with a limp, wore dusty jeans, and held a wooden cane, so they laughed at him. But by the time he reached the exit, they weren't laughing anymore. The Texas heat was brutal that day, pressing down like a heavy blanket over everything it touched. The sky was a blinding blue. The pavement shimmered in the sun, and the air carried that sharp smell of hot metal and dry dust. At the edge of a clean, glass-walled dealership for advanced agricultural machinery, a man approached slowly. His name was Eli Morgan. Eli wasn't the kind of man who drew attention. Not anymore. Age had caught up to him in the form of a stiff right leg, making each step with his wooden cane deliberate and slow. His clothes were simple: dusty jeans, a faded flannel shirt, and worn leather boots that had seen thousands of miles. A faint limp followed him like a shadow. But what people couldn't see was what lay underneath: a mind sharper than most and a past rooted deep in brilliance. Eli had once been a top professor of mechanical engineering at MIT, a mentor to some of the brightest minds in the field. But after an accident left him partially disabled, he retired from the academic world quietly. He didn't need the spotlight. He never had. And today, he wasn't here to be noticed. He was here because his son asked him to. Caleb Morgan, Eli's only child, had risen to national prominence in the tech agriculture industry. As CEO and founder of AgriCore, he built a company that redefined farming through smart, AI-powered machinery. What started as a garage project had grown into a billion-dollar empire, but Caleb had never forgotten his roots, or the man who taught him how to think, how to build, and how to lead. Caleb had asked Eli to visit one of the newest AgriCore showrooms under a simple premise: walk in unannounced, observe how the staff treats customers, and report back. No titles, no introductions, just his presence. As Eli stepped inside, the contrast was immediate. The air conditioning kissed his weathered face. Polished chrome machines lined the floor like futuristic beasts. The floor gleamed. Everything screamed modern luxury. Everything, except him. Within seconds, Eli felt the shift in the room. Behind a tall, minimalist reception desk stood a group of young staffers in matching black polos. One of them, a tall man with a perfect jawline and an even more perfect smirk, locked eyes with Eli. His name was Blake. Sir, can I help you?" Blake asked, voice flat, already assuming the answer. Eli smiled softly, just looking around. Blake scanned him up and down. The limp, the dusty shirt, the cane. He didn't say anything rude, yet, but the expression said it all. "You don't belong here." Eli walked past him, taking his time, studying the lineup of tractors, drones, and soil sensors. He admired the clean integration of design and utility, the seamless interfaces. Caleb had taken his ideas and built something bigger than either of them ever dreamed. But the eyes on him didn't let up. Whispers, quiet chuckles. "You see this guy? Looks like he wandered off a ranch from 1975. One employee murmured, "Probably looking for a parts counter." Another added with a snort. Blake, emboldened by his colleagues, approached again. "Sir," he said with a patronizing tone, "some of these models are, quite advanced. Maybe I can show you something a little more basic." Eli met his eyes. There was no anger, no irritation, just that same calm smile. "I'm still just looking." Blake gave a tight nod and turned on his heel, clearly annoyed. Eli kept walking. Every interaction was being stored in his mind, like data in a spreadsheet. He wasn't just observing how they treated him, he was watching how they treated people they thought didn't matter. A young woman, assistant manager, maybe gave him a half-hearted smile as he passed, but no one offered real help. No one asked if he had questions. He was invisible, and that, more than anything, told him what he needed to know. Outside, behind tinted glass, a sleek black SUV was parked in the employee zone. Inside that vehicle sat Caleb Morgan, silently watching the live security feed, his expression still unreadable. Caleb Morgan stepped out of the black SUV, his polished Oxfords crunching against the gravel. He adjusted the cuffs of his navy blazer, then glanced down at the security tablet in his hand. Live footage, still rolling from inside the dealership. He had seen enough. With a deep breath and shoulders squared, he entered the building. Inside, Eli was now in a quiet corner, running his fingers along the edge of a high-tech combine harvester. His face was unreadable, but his grip on the cane had tightened. Every whisper, every dismissive glance, they were piling up. He wasn't angry. He was disappointed. Blake, meanwhile, leaned against the front desk, bragging about weekend plans and dismissing another customer who had just walked in with a flippant comment. He didn't notice the man approaching until it was too late. "Excuse me," Caleb said, his voice calm but commanding. Blake turned, annoyed, then froze. The blazer, the face, the presence, it all clicked too late. Morgan. I didn't know you were visiting today," Blake stammered. Caleb's eyes didn't blink. "You didn't need to know. You just needed to do your job." Silence dropped over the room like a hammer. Other employees glanced up from their stations. A few straightened their backs. Others looked nervously toward Eli, who was now calmly approaching from the back of the room. Blake opened his mouth to explain, but Caleb held up a hand. "No need to speak. I saw everything. All of it. The mocking, the condescension, the judgment. You judged a man by his clothes, his gait, and his cane." Then he turned to the staff. "Every one of you." The employees shuffled, eyes darting. "Do you know who that man is?" Caleb asked, voice steady. No one answered. Caleb stepped aside and gestured to Eli. "This is Dr. Eli Morgan, retired professor. My father, the man who inspired this company from the ground up." Blake's jaw slackened. A soft gasp escaped from someone near the front counter. Eli said nothing. He simply looked around, locking eyes with each employee all in turn. His calm was more powerful than any outburst. Caleb continued, "You thought he was nobody. You thought he didn't belong here, but everything you see around you exists because of him." Blake tried to speak again. "I didn't mean to." "You meant every word," Caleb cut in. "And now you'll learn from it." He turned back to his father. "Dad, would you like to say something?" Eli took one step forward, his cane tapping once against the tile. He looked around and said only this: "Treat everyone like they matter. Because they do." Then he turned and walked toward the exit. No one dared stop him. Eli stepped outside into the hot Texan sunlight, the warmth kissing his face as if to remind him that the world outside was still real, still honest. His cane tapped steadily across the concrete, each sound echoing the dignity he never once surrendered inside that room. Inside, silence lingered like smoke. Caleb remained behind, hands clasped before him. The room still hadn't moved. Blake stood frozen, his face pale and tight with shame. The other employees, some embarrassed, others devastated, barely breathed. Linda, the assistant manager, finally stepped forward. "Mr. Morgan, we didn't know," she said softly, eyes lowered. "That's the point," Caleb replied. "You shouldn't have to know someone's title to treat them with respect." Then he turned to Blake. "You're suspended, effective immediately. HR will reach out, and you'll attend mandatory sensitivity and customer care retraining if you want to remain here at all." Blake nodded slowly, humiliated but speechless. "And the rest of you," Caleb addressed the staff. "This company was built on more than machines. It was built on a code. My father didn't raise me to be rich. He raised me to be decent. And today, you failed that standard." No one argued. No one could. Later that week, an internal video circulated across all AgriCore locations. It opened with a still frame of Eli standing near a tractor, his cane in hand. Then came Caleb's voice. "This is Dr. Eli Morgan, my father, a man who spent decades shaping minds before I ever built my first machine. Last week, he walked into one of our showrooms unannounced. He was met with silence, with judgment, with condescension. He didn't wear a name tag, didn't ask for attention, and still, he deserved better. We all do. This company isn't just about innovation. It's about people and how we treat them when we think no one's watching. That's what truly defines us." The message rippled across AgriCore's 60-plus locations like a shockwave. Managers held emergency meetings. Training protocols were revised. Customer interaction scripts were rewritten. More than rules, it was a culture shift. And Eli, he never spoke publicly about the incident. But every so often, he'd visit another branch, quiet, unannounced. And this time, every employee, no matter the city, would rise to greet him. Some didn't know who he was, and it didn't matter because they had learned the lesson, and that was enough.